Hi, loves. How's everyone doing? I hope you've had an amazing start to the new year. I hope everything is working out for you. I hope you're staying positive. I hope you are doing daily affirmations like I think I have said on multiple videos that I've posted. I hope everything's just going great for you. So happy. Why am I like this Wednesday? I usually like to start off with like a specific topic. But since I have so many things coming up and I didn't want to miss posting a video, I'm just going to go on a whim. Just whatever comes to mind. So what I've been thinking about lately is, I don't even know how to say it, your mental state of mind, which is probably something that we all think about anyways. But I'm finding myself in this dilemma where I think I struggle with wanting there to be an end game. Like, as long as I do the work that I need to do, I'm going to get to the finish line. And one thing I am slowly learning how to recognize is there is no end. There is no finish line. There is no, I made it, that's it, we're good. The rest of my life is going to be a breeze. That's not how it works. And I'm starting to recognize that no matter how bad I want to fix all of the issues that I have, I'm never going to fully be able to fix them. And that's hard. I think it's hard for me to accept. I'm not sure if it's hard for you to accept when it comes to your mental health and things that you're dealing with. But for me, it's hard because I don't wanna. I just don't want to. I don't want to feel like I'm never going to be okay. Like, when you think about it from that perspective, you almost want to give up on yourself. Like, I'm always going to have anxiety. For the rest of my life, I'm going to have anxiety. One of the things that I have anxiety about is if my insurance ever changes, or if I can't see a psych anymore, what's going to happen to my medication? If I stop my medication, that's going to affect my mental health. What if I can't afford my medication because I take medication for anxiety? I have anxiety about taking medication and being dependent on it. But what I will say is I took most of my life, 40 years, to not want to have anything to do with medication. And I didn't realize until one of my therapists, I've had 3 since 2020, that my depression actually stemmed from my anxiety. I was depressed because my anxiety was depressing me. If I wasn't so anxious all the time, I wouldn't be as depressed as I was. So I was diagnosed with severe depression. And she said, it's because of your anxiety and your panic attacks. So once I learn how to not necessarily control them, but once I learn how to manage them better, my depression won't be so bad. Who doesn't want that? Mind you, I also have medication anxiety. So I had my medication prescribed to me for about 9 months. I didn't take it. When I finally decided to take it, it was because I felt, I don't know if it was everything that happened in 2020, but so in 2018, we were homeless. And I hate saying homeless because I feel like there's homeless where you're on the streets and you have nowhere to go. And then there's homeless. Honestly, I don't even know how to explain. Like, I don't know. So we lived in a shelter, but first we tried to live with my father-in-law, but he's a full-blown narcissist and He has not gone to therapy to be diagnosed, but my 3 therapists who have heard me speak of him and my kids' therapists who have heard them speak of him say that he is. So I'm going to go on a whim and say that he is. So that was 3 months of hell. Okay. My husband was in a bad place. I was in a bad place. They sold the house that we were living in. It just happened out of nowhere. I just got laid off. Our credit was shit. So everywhere we tried to move, who was willing to accept our credit at the time wanted like $10,000. We didn't have that. So then after hotels for a little bit, then we went to a shelter, which was amazing. That they offered that. It was really hard. Orange County offers way more for people in situations like that than the Inland Empire does, like Riverside County. So after that happened, we finally got an apartment because we fixed our credit and we were saving money, and we got our apartment in January. Like January 16th or 17th was like the official day that we moved in. February 19th. We weren't even done packing. We still were paying for storage for the things that we had. We hadn't even removed everything from our storage unit. My husband got GBS, Guillain-Barré syndrome. You will definitely have to Google it. It is a autoimmune deficiency that there's no cure for it. Like once you've had GBS, you will have it for the rest of your life. And it could even be triggered by COVID, by the flu shot, by vaccines, by just, his was triggered by an antibiotic vaccine, which is why I am deathly afraid of taking any additional vaccines for my children, because that's their father. Genetically, they might have the same issue that he had, or reaction to it. He can take antibiotics in pill form. He just can't take antibiotics in a shot. And I guess what is in that shot is in the COVID vaccine and most vaccines and the flu shot. So yeah, when you experience something like this, you start to do more research on things that you would have never even thought about, to be honest. So it definitely opened our eyes when it came to a lot of the things that we're putting into our body. So he almost died. It's when your immune system attacks itself. So instead of his body healing, and it was because he had a vasectomy and he had a suture infection. So the way they did the vasectomy, the infection that he ended up having, which was weird because he took great care of himself, it just started attacking his body. So instead of it healing the infection, it started attacking his body. So then that's when they had to give him that shot. And 12 hours after that shot, he started feeling tingling in his legs. Then it got to his knees. Then it was at his fingertips. And he almost died. And for 2 weeks in the ICU, no matter how many times we felt like he might be getting better, he got worse before he got better. And when the doctors tell you he might need to be intubated, he looks like he could be in the right direction of getting better, but I cannot tell you that he won't just crash. If you look on YouTube or you Google it, there are people that even got as healed as they could in the hospital and went to a rehabilitation center and was triggered again for some reason and ended up dying or having to come back to the ICU. So when I tell you that with the stress that I had to feel constantly, and then having my kids start school, and it was a lot. A new apartment, no one to move the storage, husband in the hospital. My kids are all traumatized because he collapsed when 2 of my kids were at the house, taken by ambulance. So it was a lot. Then it took him a year to recover, which he's still not 100% recovered, but he's pretty good. And COVID. Like, he went to work in January of 2020 and March of 2020 hits COVID. Like, can I get a break? Can I get a break? So, yeah, that's what happened. So all of that, and then COVID hit. So by the end of, and then my best friend had cancer, literally diagnosed at the same time, like same time my husband ended up in the hospital. It was so weird that her and I would talk about it, because it was just like, I felt guilty every single day that I was with him in the hospital and I couldn't be with her in the hospital. Because if I'm being honest, she deserved for me to be there more than he deserved for me to be there for him. And I'm saying that because we had a lot of problems in our relationship, and then we got to a really good place. And then when we had to move into his father's house for a short time, he was triggered in a very bad way, because his father just brings out the worst in him. That he wasn't a good person to me at that time. He was fine with his kids, actually, but towards me, like, he just avoided me, and it was because he didn't want to be in that house. But then I was stuck in that house with that person, so then I was in a bad mood when he would get home. It was just a lot. So we were not in a good place at all. So it was really hard for me to not be with my best friend of over 25 years, and I'm being there for him, because I literally don't know if he's going to die in his sleep or die the next day, or his lungs are going to collapse, or he's not, because he literally lost feeling of every part of his body. He got paralyzed in his face. The only thing he could move was his hands. He could barely move his torso. It was coming up. Their biggest fear was if it got to his lungs. That's probably where it stopped. So every day that I was with him, I was thinking of her, and then I was trying to text her so she didn't think I wasn't thinking of her, and she never made me feel guilty. But it's a shitty feeling. I was able to see her once, and then it was crappy. So October hit, and I literally felt like I was going insane. And she passed away. I was so scared during COVID to go visit her, because I knew that she was going through chemo, and I felt like my kids could get it. And I leave the house to go grocery shopping sometimes. And this is around the time that I was totally panicked over getting COVID. If I was to go around her to see her, am I being selfish? Because if I got her sick and her body can't fight it because of what she's going through, I would never forgive myself. Like, at that time, I didn't think a mask would do anything. I just felt like germs were everywhere. And I already know that your immune system is compromised when you're going through chemo, and she was going through chemo. But at the same time, was I making excuses? I don't know. I don't feel like I was, but we had friends, mutual friends together, that told me, you should have just went to see her. And till this day, I will always regret that I didn't go see her more. We were talking. We were messaging. I'll always regret that forever. And there's this little bit of resentment towards my husband, because I didn't want him to get the vasectomy to begin with. So I felt like this should have been her time with me. And because you did something that I told you I didn't want you to do, because the day before his surgery, I said, I don't know. I just have this feeling something's gonna go wrong. It did. And when something goes wrong, it's not just for him. I'm affected. I'm always affected. So I had a lot of resentment, a lot of anger, a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, some severe depression. And it's just, you don't know when COVID's going to end, and you're stressing over COVID. So when I say I felt like I was losing my mind, I felt like I was losing my mind. I literally was seconds away from just turning myself in to the hospital. Like, I felt like the only way that I could deal with whatever it was that I was going through was in a mental hospital. Like, they're going to force me to take medication. They're going to give me something to go to sleep. Like, maybe I just need sleep. I hadn't slept for days. And you start to hallucinate when you don't sleep for days. And for whatever reason, I thought I was going to die in my sleep. It was bad. So when I say my anxiety is bad, like it's bad. So I got to that point, and then my therapist said, how about we do this? Every morning that you take the pill, you call me and we'll be on the phone and we will talk and we will see where things go, and hopefully it'll distract you and you won't be so anxious or nervous to take it. Okay. So for the first 2 weeks, every morning I called her or I would text message her and I would distract myself. But I will say the first few times I told myself, no, you could do it. You do not need to call her. Are you kidding me? You're a grown woman. Like, figure it out. Like, why are you allowing your anxiety to control you? It was so, and I know if you're watching this and you have anxiety, you know what that feels like. When your mental illness affects your everyday life in that aspect, you feel like a failure to yourself and everyone around you. It's just, it literally consumes all of you. But then you want it to make sense, and then you can't fully explain it. And it's so much. It is so much. So the first few days I didn't call her, but then we had our appointment, our regularly scheduled appointment, and come to find out, the psych didn't tell me this at the time, but when you start an anxiety medication, which is, I guess, why a lot of people end up like committing suicide and just, they run into so many obstacles because nobody fully explains to them the side effects. When you take medication for like anxiety or depression, what it does is it heightens what it is that you're feeling and going through. And then it slowly comes down, and then your body regulates and gets used to it. And then you get to like a good place. He didn't tell me that. So the first few days I was like, why do I feel worse? Oh my God. I can't do this. So when I had messaged her, she said, just walk around. Every single time you feel like you're, palpitations and you can't breathe and you're getting really nervous and sweaty and clammy, go take a walk. So every single day I took a walk. Like, it got to the point where I was taking a walk like 10 or 12 times a day. That much. So I still wasn't sleeping very well. When I fell asleep, it was from exhaustion. It was like when you're sleeping and then you just nod off. That was how I was falling asleep for a good 2 weeks. So I know that wasn't good for me at all. But then one day after like day 7 or 8, I just remember thinking, have I gone outside to walk today? I haven't had to go outside to walk. Dude, how many times did I go walk yesterday? Wait a minute. What the hell? Like, it really hit me. And I was like, okay, so my anxiety was less and less and less and less. And when I had another session with her, I just remember her asking, like, how do you feel? And I'm like, good. And I was still having anxiety and panic attacks, but it wasn't even close to what it used to be. And then as more time passed and my body got more used to it, I had less and less. And now we're on a little over 3 years, or going on 3 years. And I have literally had maybe 4 or 5 panic attacks in almost 3 years. I used to have them 2 to 3 times a week. Anxiety was every single day, all day. Now I'll just feel anxious whenever I'm ovulating or I'm on my period. And that's about it. So then you run into the whole, how I should have been taking this a long time ago. How much of my life did I miss? Or how much of my life affect my children because I didn't want to take medication? Now, hold on. I never wanted to be dependent on any form of medication. My therapist had explained to me and said, listen, if you were diabetic or you had high blood pressure, would you not take the medication that you need to live? And I said, yeah. And she's like, why can't you look at this the same way? Because it's not it's not blood pressure medication and it's not diabetic medication. It's something else. And she's like, that's your problem. You're not looking at it as if there's something wrong. You come from a family of addicts. So many people on my mom's side and my dad's side are addicts. My biggest fear is to ever become an addict or to become dependent on something. So because that was my fear, I just avoided anything that would make me feel like I was dependent on it. And by doing that, I suffered in the process. I could have started this medication years ago. And I know my weight issues were because of it. If I worked out too hard at the gym and I started getting heart palpitations, which is something I never worried about before, like 2018, I would freak out and feel like I'm going to die and have a heart attack at the gym. When I tell you it was a lot, it was a lot. So when I'm explaining that sometimes we tend to feel like, when is this going to end? Can it just end? Can it be over? Can I just feel normal? What is normal? What does normal look like? What does normal feel like? There are actually people in this world who don't have anxiety or panic attacks. I am so jealous. Like, so jealous. So jealous. And, but I don't think that there are people out there who don't suffer with that, who have not had trauma, PTSD, just grown up in a very toxic environment. And I feel that that attributes to where I'm at today mentally. And then I was talking to someone earlier today about your state of mind. You run into people who will tell you, like, you should know right from wrong. Nobody should have to tell you right from wrong. That's true. You should 100% understand right from wrong. However, if you grew up in an environment where the majority of the people around you did things that were wrong, your mindset easily gravitates towards the wrong unintentionally because you are a product of your environment. So when uneducated, ignorant people get upset for certain behaviors they see in people without recognizing and understanding that although we are in control and we are and should be held responsible for our behavior and there should be a consequence, at the same time, in order for that person to recognize it and do something about it, they have to see that there's something wrong. Sometimes you can come across someone who doesn't think that what they do is wrong. Example, I've had multiple people, my sister-in-law is one of them, with her ex. One time she told me that her feelings were hurt because of an argument that they had, and she was trying to have a discussion with him and he didn't want to talk about it. So then she let that go, but she did tell him, listen, what you said and what you did really hurt my feelings. He said nothing. And she just, are you going to say anything? And his response was, I know that I didn't say it to hurt your feelings. So even if your feelings are hurt, that's not my problem. I'm not going to apologize. And she just as much as she shouldn't have been surprised, she was surprised. And it's just, when you're with a narcissist, you hold out this hope of every single time they do something just so crappy that maybe this is going to be the time that they don't do it, or maybe this is going to be the time that they recognize it. That was never the case for her. It's still never the case for my father-in-law either, and all the other ones that I've come across in my life. And what I'm trying to say is it's one of those where it's not to make an excuse for his behavior, not at all. However, he grew up in an environment where no one was held accountable for their actions. He grew up in an area where he was never held accountable for his actions. So by his standard, if he didn't say something that should have hurt your feelings or shouldn't have hurt your feelings, then that is a you problem, not a him problem. And if we're being honest, once you've gone to therapy and you've learned bad behaviors, and that you're the only one that's in control of how you feel, how you react, how you respond to people. So what he said, if we're being honest, even if it did hurt her feelings, it is something she needs to worry about and that she needs to control for herself. But when you're with someone and you care about someone, you slowly start to learn the things that bother them and hurt them, and you try to not do them just as much as you wouldn't want them to do something to intentionally hurt your feelings. If I've told you that you doing this hurts my feelings and you continue to do it, how am I supposed to respect you or feel that you care about me? Like it's not that hard. So I just feel like people who grow up in toxic environments learn toxic behavior. And it bothers me that you run into people who make it seem as if that is an excuse. And I don't feel that, it in a way it probably is, but like my brother, he's struggling right now. I am grateful to hear from him whenever I do, but he's struggling and my heart goes out to him, and he's had problems with drugs, and I want to hug him and kiss him, but I know that we didn't grow up together. And I know that the life that he lived and what he experienced was a lot. Even my other brother experienced a lot that he didn't deserve. All of them, all of my other siblings, including me. So when you grow up feeling unloved and not fully being able to recognize what love feels like, you tend to love in an unhealthy, unconditional way, if that makes sense. The people who were supposed to teach you what love looked like didn't teach it to you correctly. So you can't help but think to yourself like, okay, well, my mom did this to me and did that to me and made me feel this way and made me feel that way. So because she made me feel this way and I felt like I was always hurt, or I felt like I wasn't heard, or I felt like what I was going through didn't matter, or that she was more important than me, you tend to gravitate towards people like that. And then you still find yourself questioning everything. Like, why do I love someone who continues to hurt me? Well, did people who were supposed to love you continue to hurt you? Crap, I didn't think about it that way. Yeah. The behavior that you allow around you, that makes you feel some type of way, but you still allow it, is usually, I don't want to say always because everyone's life and situation is different, but is usually based on the environment that you grew up in. So for me, I allowed very poor behavior from partners that I had in my life. And I always somehow gravitated towards the most dysfunctional people ever, even in friendships, because everybody that I grew up around was dysfunctional. So yeah, that I'm learning. Now I make sure to eliminate people like that. I start to find red flags immediately where I didn't before. Now I start to see patterns, and I immediately tell myself, nope, we're not going to do that. We're not going to go there. You cannot fix this person. You cannot help this person. And you could actually, once you start to work on yourself, you could start to recognize that some people can be helped. Some people talk a good game, and some people can't be helped. Because people need to recognize that they need something to work on. And there are a lot of people out there who think there's nothing wrong. They're fine. They're fine. So those are the ones you want to stay away from. The ones you also want to stay away from are the ones who talk a good game, recognize it, and you give them as much advice and suggestions that you possibly can, and they don't do anything. Like, do you have any idea how many people I know that I have said, maybe you should go into therapy, maybe you should try therapy, maybe you should try self-help books, and they don't do it? Excuse me? Have you heard of that? Have you seen the meme or the quote that says, I'm in therapy because others who should be are not? That is so true. I think if a good amount of people in my family, both sides, would have taken therapy, I don't think myself and my cousins included would have had so many issues. Genuinely. I genuinely think that. But hey, someone has to do the work. Someone has to start. Yay, it's me. There's only, you know what? Holy crap. No. On my mom's side of the family, there's a lot. There's like over 20, 25, 30. That's including cousins, aunts, and uncles. I don't think one person is in therapy. I know my cousin's son was for a little while because he was going through a transition. But I don't know if he continues. No one in my family is in therapy. And when I tell you they need it, that is an understatement, okay? Probably even applies to my father's side of the family. Except for I do know one of my cousins did take therapy. And I wish she would have had like a good experience, because sometimes it takes a while to find a therapist that works for you. And I don't think the one that she had at the time worked for her. So what I am going to tell you guys is, when you are healing, don't look for the finish line, because it's never going to be there. Even if you learn how to deal with yourself better, even if you are able to understand yourself in a way that you've never been able to, and others, you will always have something to work on. You will always have room for improvement. And don't look at it as a failure or this never-ending journey that you would like to end. Look at it as something that is beautiful, because you should never stop learning, and that includes learning about yourself. Also, If you start going into therapy, don't give up if that person isn't a good match. Also, when you go into therapy for the first time, remember you have to put as much into it as you expect your therapist to put into it. But also know that they should be professional. And if you don't feel a connection with that person and they just can't get that out of you, tell them. That therapist, if they are professional enough, will not get their feelings hurt. They're not going to look at it as, did I not do my job right? No, it's not that. Not everybody clicks with everybody. And that therapist probably isn't your person at the time. The type of healing that you need, you will feel that connection when you're with that therapist. You'll feel it. And don't force it. Don't force it if it's not working. It doesn't matter how many therapists you go through. That doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. There are so many different types of therapists that do things in so many different ways that some of them might not be doing things in the way that you are ready for them to do it. So be kind to yourself. Love yourself. Be patient with yourself. Understand yourself. Pay attention to the red flags in others. And just be kind to others and yourself. Don't excuse poor behaviors just because you understand their life and their struggles. Set boundaries. I say that all the time. Try to manifest every single day something positive for yourself. And yeah, thank you for listening. I was doing this in my car today because going forward, I might start doing more in my car because I am going to start having a schedule where I'm trying to fit certain things in it. So I'm going to try to multitask. And that means sometimes I will be doing this in the car, which is okay. I tested it out. We're going to see how this works. So far, it seems fine. But I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. I hope your week is great. And I hope you're able to start taking the steps to work on yourself. Because at the end of the day, you are responsible for yourself. And it is very important for you to like the person that you are. And if you can ask yourself right now, do I like who I am? And the answer is no, you got to do some work. You got to do some work. Because if I'm being honest, I don't like the size that I am right now. I don't. Do I like who I am as an individual? Absolutely. 100%. I love me. And for so many years, I think I told myself that I did, but deep down I didn't. And it shows in just the energy that I have every day and who I am as an individual. So just learn to love yourself before anything, above all. Learn to love yourself. Learn to be patient with yourself. And everything else will slowly follow. Thank you for listening, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.